episode, I'll just let them in. So if I seem distracted, Gabrielle, it's just because I'm letting people in.
No, it's completely fine.
Right, so Gabrielle, thank you so much for coming on tonight as well, especially on a Friday evening. I can't thank you enough. So I'll just do a quick introduction about who you are, and then if I've got it wrong, just correct me. So you are a graduate from Northumbria University, currently a tenant at St Paul's Chambers, and you are a criminal barrister. And so you did a common law pupillage, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So I did a common law pupillage, and now I mainly do crime.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So was the transition going from like common law pupillage to crime? Like, did you just kind of drop the other stuff quite quickly and move straight into crime?
Yeah, so I did my common law pupillage. So I did civil, family, and crime in my second six.
Yeah.
And decided that in fact I really did enjoy crime, and really disliked civil. So decided that in fact I just wanted to do crime. I do a bit that crosses over. So for example, stalking protection orders, sexual harm prevention orders, they cross over with civil. But I mainly do crime, yes.
Oh, amazing. So, and St Paul's Chambers, is that in Leeds?
Yes, so St
Yeah.
Paul's is in Leeds. We're a fairly small set. I think there's around 40 barristers. So in comparison to other criminal sets or even other chambers, we are fairly small, but we do that for a reason. The idea really is to keep everyone engaged, make sure everyone knows everyone, and it feels a bit more close knit, and a bit more positive, friendly. We do a lot of things together. We go away on weekends. So we have an AGM weekend away. That's coming up in July, I think, or June.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that as well.
Oh, that's amazing. And you are, of course, the founder of Northumbria Bar Society as well. And prior to becoming a criminal barrister at St Paul's Chambers, you were a criminal paralegal, and you also worked as a prison law advocate, or
Yes, a prison law
yeah,
advocate.
yeah, and you did it in front of a panel of parole board hearings, didn't you? So it was to assist, I'm guessing, people who've been convicted and are in prison to look at getting maybe a release or close to that time, is it? I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, that's right. So I represented offenders that had been convicted,
Yeah.
and it was at the time that they were coming in front of the parole board. So they get it normally once a year, and they come before a parole board panel, and they decide whether they are able to go into the community or not, or whether they can move to open conditions. So I represented them through parole board hearings, and in fact I still do that now, even
Oh,
as a
wow.
barrister, which is quite nice.
Oh, that's lovely. Also, you're still continuing that line of work as well, even though you are fully self-employed as a criminal barrister, and you're probably very busy as well. So, but you still do that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
Oh,
such good experience at the time because it's what I do currently anyway. So I've continued it. And it really did bring me out of my shell. I was terrified all the time. And I still am, of course.
yeah.
I'm sure we'll get to that stage at some point of today's call.
I think you're being a bit unfair. I think you're probably amazing in the courtroom, to be honest. But I think it's just, yeah, I can't imagine. Even sometimes, like, even when you're observing or if you're on a mini pupillage or something, like, even then you're just like, oh my goodness, your heart's in your mouth for everybody. And so I couldn't imagine going and just, I mean, it must have been great exposure and good experience to have.
Definitely. And that's why I think, there's so much that you can do to prepare for pupillage or prepare to be a barrister. And I'm sure we'll get to that stage at some point today. But every experience that you do, even if you think it's not useful, the transferable skills are so important. And you don't realise that until you take a step back and you're like, okay, let's look at what skills I've learned from this. You know, I worked at McDonald's. That was something that really helped me and made me the person I am today. And you wouldn't think that me selling chicken nuggets would make any difference to becoming a barrister, but it does. So my biggest advice for people is take a step back and look at what you're doing now. And what you'll find is the skills that you gain in today in day-to-day life at university or whatever stage you're at is so helpful to becoming a barrister. You just don't realise it at the time.
Yeah, and I bet it's kind of like it's that commercial awareness, isn't it, and the confidence as well to be able to like project. Well, it's like anything in sales, isn't it? When you're selling something, you're selling it to somebody, and it's kind of like that as a barrister, isn't it? Really, like you're trying to sell your client's case in that type of way. So I guess it must have been really helpful to have, even if it was selling chicken nuggets, like you know how to sell a chicken nugget, so you can sell anything else. I mean, I think that must have been like the hardest thing. Like, yeah, imagine if somebody said to you, do a presentation on selling the chicken nugget. I don't even think I'd know where to start.
I think I'd be great at that. I love
Yeah,
it, so I think I'd be great at it. But
you'd smash out of the park. Yeah, and also you volunteered at Support Through Court, which is a massive thing. I'm sure a lot of aspiring barristers have heard of Support Through Court. If they haven't, it's an organisation. I'm sure you can give a bit more detail, Gabrielle, on what it is, but it's an organisation, isn't it, aimed at giving free, well, access to justice on a free basis to members of the community. And I think you did quite a lot of yours in family law, didn't you?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And you are the co-founder of Let's Chat Law as well.
Yes, I am.
And your dissertation got published on LexisNexis, which a mouthful, and that was on family law. And the title of the dissertation, which I read a little bit on Google, because I think it only gives you like the first page to read on Google. I think you have to go into LexisNexis, and I think my account got taken off me because I'm not a student anymore, but I will be in a few months, so I'll be getting that back. But it was technology achieving a human approach to the remote ways of working in the family justice system. And like how must that have felt seeing that get published into the online?
It was great. I worked really hard on my dissertation, and I was in university during COVID, so hence why my dissertation was focused around the remote working in the family justice system, because I realised how much that was affecting not only us as students but also you know, the law and the legal system. So that's why I did my dissertation on that, and I did it. Well, it was published with Kim Holt, who's an amazing professor at Northumbria University, and she's also a practicing barrister. So it was really great to see the work, you know, in format that's, you know, official and not just a Word document on my laptop that just looks, you know, notes everywhere. I was stressed. Dissertations are awful to write, and I'm sure some of you may have written them already. You might not have. It's really traumatizing. I'm not going to pretend it isn't. And to see the end product of not only just having your dissertation and getting your grade, but also having it published was really a proud moment for me.
Yeah, I bet as well, because I think some people take such like two ends of the stick with dissertations, either completely bored by them and it becomes kind of like a dread, doesn't it? Like the deadline, you just can't wait to get it done. But it seems you really stuck into yours and obviously thoroughly enjoyed it, and as a result of it, it managed to get published. That must have been so cool. I would have been like swanning around telling everybody that. I need to stop using that phrase as well, swanning around, because I've said that a bit one too many times and people are picking up on this phrase that I keep on using. But I would have been definitely swanning around, like telling everybody about it.
Yeah, well, it was really nice, and you know, it was something that I'm extremely proud of still to this day.
Absolutely.
But I just think really when you get to that stage of finishing your dissertation, and because mine was so current at the time, obviously that made it extremely hard for me to do any research on remote ways of working and the way it is now. There's so much research out there, but at the time when I was doing my dissertation, there wasn't. So I think that was quite a hindrance for me. But to see it kind of be published is always really positive. And I think, you know, a takeaway from that is to think about, you know, think outside the box. You don't need to just do the basics of just doing a dissertation and that's it. Think outside the box. What can you do with that dissertation? Can you turn it into an article? Can you try and get it published? It's all about doing the work, but also finding other ways to succeed and other ways to sell yourself. And you guys will all want to be, I'm sure, aspiring barristers. And the idea really is to make yourself stand out. So always think outside the box. And that's an example of when I did that.
Yeah, and of course it's kind of like a written piece of advocacy, isn't it? Like it is almost like a written piece of advocacy, so to show that you've managed to do that on such a level as well, and on such a niche area of law, really, because before COVID, remote working and remote courts didn't really exist, did they? As such. So to do it on such a new piece of a new subject in a new area must have been both tough and challenging. So also in terms of guidance from Dr. Is it Dr. Holt, Dr. Professor Holt?
Yeah.
How did your guidance work then during the remote? So is it all Teams or Zoom type of calls? Is that how you?
Yes, so it was mainly just team calls or Zoom calls, because
Yeah.
it was COVID, it became fairly difficult. It was a lot of exchanging of emails, and working together on making sure that the dissertation was right to be published. Because as you can imagine, a dissertation's, thousands of words, whereas a publication's a lot shorter. So what we had to do and is really condense it down, so that it could be published, and so it could be kind of useful for everyone. Because I can't imagine anyone wants to read my dissertation that was thousands of pages long, but the publication was much shorter, and I'm sure that was a better read, in fact.
Yeah, I enjoyed what I read online, and it was just, I think it just literally gives you a couple of like 4 pages. I think it is. I think it's something like that. But from what I read, I was like really intrigued in it, and I thought, oh my goodness, that would probably be such a good read, and I hate reading as well. So I mean, when I get my account back, I'll definitely try and read it. If I do, I'll probably be blacklisted. So let's talk a little bit about your education experience, then, if you don't mind. So can you just talk us through like your education experience as a whole, so school and college? Like, would you say that you stuck into it quite easily and you really enjoyed it, or was there times where you didn't really quite enjoy school?
Yeah, I think it was a mixed bag from me. I did really love school, but I won't pretend that I was a perfect student. Won't pretend that I wasn't mouthy and gobby and liked to chat to my friends, because I was that student. I went to a state school, and the area that I was from at the time, and the school, or the area that the school was based in, wasn't the best. I'm from a low socio-economic background, so I had to work extremely hard to get to where I wanted to be. Then I did A levels and did law, English language and sociology. I had to remember then. It feels like a while ago. And in terms of A levels, I got 2 A's and a C. And you may be wondering what the C was in, and that was in law. And that really took me back and surprised me, because I thought I was doing really well. And I thought law was definitely the career for me. And then getting a C in it kind of shocked me quite a bit, made me feel like I maybe wasn't right for it, and questioned my ability. Then I went to university and did law anyway, because I knew deep down that it was for me. And even though I had what I felt like was a bad grade, but in fact is a really good grade, at the time I felt like it wasn't good enough. So I went to university at Northumbria. I studied the M-Law course, which basically is the law degree with a master's and the bar course all tied in. So I always knew that I wanted to be a barrister. So I always knew that I wanted to do the bar course. But the difficulty is, and I'm sure some of you will be well aware, getting funding for the bar course is a nightmare. Sometimes you have to go through the Inns of Courts, but if you don't get a scholarship, it has to really be self-funded. And I knew that I wanted to do it, but I didn't want to risk not having that opportunity to complete the bar course. So Northumbria has it all tied in, which was amazing for me. And I was so lucky to complete that course. And then, yes, I did a year of working as a prison law advocate, and then I got pupillage.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's such a nice story to hear that I'm sure you didn't effortlessly swan through it at all. I'm not saying swan through again, but I'm sure that that's such a nice story to hear, that especially having a bit of a knock and not thinking that law was for you, that you did actually go into it. So it clearly is made for you. The career is clearly made for you. And especially it must have been quite reassuring and confirming to think, oh, actually, I've managed to do it. And on your first round as well. Was it your first round of pupillage?
No, it wasn't. It was my second
No.
round.
Oh, but
Often
still, what a
people
fact.
like really, people think that, you know, if you don't get first round, that's it. But in fact, what you realise is not many people do get it first round. In fact, it's really rare. So that made me feel a lot better because I got it second round. And I think I was the right person for the fit second round. Whereas when I first did it, you know, I wasn't ready for it. And at the time, you obviously think you are, and you think that you're ready for the career and that's all you've ever wanted and you worked really hard for it. But in fact, the reason, like when I got it the second round, it was right for me. And it worked out so much better. So I think that's one thing to note, is that everyone says it, and at the time you don't really listen and you don't think it's, you know, it's right or it's true. But the career does find you at the right time, and once you get pupillage, it's because you're ready for it, not the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because it's such a, obviously so many people's lives, and it's such a big responsibility, isn't it, to be a barrister? An emotional responsibility, a physical responsibility. There's so much to it that you have to be right for it. But it's so easy. It's hard to critically self-reflect and think I'm not ready for it. I came out of my in of court scholarship interview, and I wasn't successful. But I was like, I know I'm ready for it. Like, I know I'm passionate about it, but I think there's being passionate, and I think there's being ready for it. And I think life experiences don't go amiss at all. You know, I don't think I'd particularly, obviously I wouldn't turn it down, and I'm not going to say this in case the evil eye like stabs me in the back, but I wouldn't be upset at all if I got it second, third, fourth round, because I think you just build each year then, and maybe rather going into it completely fresh, brand new baby, like no experiences at all, you maybe go into it a little bit like more clued up. And just, it's an opportunity, isn't it? As each year passes by, it's an opportunity to get your foot in different doors, whether it be legal doors or, like you said, like just normal work experience jobs as well. Obviously, you were a paralegal as well, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. I think it comes at the right time, and that probably won't be reassuring for any of you. And it wasn't when I got rejected the first time, because I really wanted it. But then reflecting on it now, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Going to pupillage interview shortly, but I was a nervous wreck. And then the second time round, I walked in like I knew that I was, you know, like I owned the place.
Yeah.
Obviously not in the worst way, and I wasn't showing off or nasty or anything like that. But I knew that I was ready for it the second time.
I think that's really nice as well to hear, especially from a barrister, because it's so hard to self-reflect when you yourself, but when you hear it from somebody who's been through it as well, that says, you know, it's not a bad thing to not be ready for something, and there will be times in your life where you're just not ready for it. I think it's quite reassuring to hear that, because I think it's sometimes when you take it as a criticism, don't you, when you think you're not ready for something, instead of just thinking, oh, actually my time will come, you take it as like, oh, I'm not good enough, rather than just being like, I'm not ready.
Yeah,
So if any, oh,
sorry,
go on. No, go on, you go.
I think we are our own worst critics.
100%.
One thing goes wrong and you think that the world is ending, and you think that it's all your fault and you've not been the best that you can be, or you've not tried hard enough, or you've not studied hard enough. And in fact, that is so incorrect. It comes at the right time, and you've probably done absolutely everything you can, and you should be proud of how far you've come and how hard you've worked. And I think sometimes we don't necessarily reflect on our journey, And we just always focus on the future, because to be a barrister, in reality, you really have to be ambitious, and really strive for the best. And that's, some of the characteristics of becoming a barrister. But because of that, we sometimes forget to reflect on how far we've come, and to reflect on all the good we've done, and the fact that we're in university, or the fact that we passed that test that we really didn't want to pass and we hated every second of it. It's just reflecting on the small things, and being proud of ourselves for that. And I think it's sometimes really hard to do, but I would really recommend doing it.
Yeah, it is difficult to do, and sometimes as well, I bet you've come across barristers that have had to admit that they've got something wrong, or they've had to like self reflect on maybe something that they could have done throughout the case, or what, or so on and so forth. And it is, I think, self reflection and constructive criticism is a part of every part of life, isn't it? But it's just about knowing that it's not a bad thing sometimes to constructively criticize yourself, but then there's also the times where you can take it too far. And we do, I think, sometimes, like, there's that imposter syndrome as well, isn't there, where people just believe that they just can't be a barrister, and if they have like one wrong moment, like, I don't know, they failed one test or just something where the universe has accidentally aligned something, that's it, everyone's like, right, it's my fate, I can't be a barrister. And I've done that loads of times, like I failed a test or whatever, or not got the highest grade on it, and then I've been like, right, there you go, I'm not meant to be a barrister, I'll do something else. But I think it's just about, like you said, persevering, isn't it?
I think people put barristers on a pedestal, and I know why.
100%.
Because it's the career that you're aspiring to be. It's the career that you want to do. You want to be like that person. But in fact, we are just normal people. We all make mistakes. We all have really bad days. We all question ourselves. And that's what you realise the more you meet other barristers. Is in fact, they are just like everyone else. They aren't gods. They have emotions. They have stresses, and that's something to remember, is we are just normal people. And Ellie, you touched on there slightly about failing exams. I failed civil litigation at the bar the first time. I was devastated, absolutely devastated. I was the only one out of my friends that failed, and we were all going out to celebrate. And I still went and celebrated, but I was devastated. I was so upset. I thought that was the end of my career. And that's just how it is. And at the time, that's how I felt. But I really, tried hard again. Thankfully, it was in COVID, so I got really lucky in the sense that because I failed the first time, it didn't technically matter, because there was some leeway at the time, which meant that if you failed once, it didn't count, because it was COVID, it was all online. It didn't matter in terms of my grade, and the second resit that I did, or the first resit that I did, that counted as my grade. There was no kind of black mark next to my name. But what you need to remember is, everyone fails, and anyone that tells you that they haven't failed anything in life, they're lying. Because even if they don't fail any exam, they could fail or do something wrong in a conversation, or do something wrong in normal life. Anyone that pretends that they're perfect just aren't. And you guys need to reflect on stuff that goes wrong, like I did with civil litigation. And I still hate civil, and I'll stand by that. But there's 4 different types of people. You guys might love it, and that's fine as well. But reflect on why you failed. Reflect on why something went wrong. And then make sure it doesn't happen again. So make that progress. And I do think the hurdles that you jump, and the hurdles that you fail at, make you a better person in the end. I know I'm a stronger person by failing and by feeling like I'm not going to succeed, because I work 10 times harder now, than I probably ever would have if I had have just had a smooth sailing through life. So it's normally quite a positive. It doesn't feel like it at the time, though.
And also, I think it's so nice to hear what you've just said there about just reflecting on why you failed. Like, sometimes there's so many different factors going on in our lives as young students, and young people, that you may have failed because you've had something really tragic going on, or you might have had a bit of trauma that's going on, or you might have just had a really bad week on the week it was your exams, or there's so many different reasons as to why somebody's failed. It's not an immediate reflection on your intelligence, but I think immediately people do reflect on their intelligence. I do it all the time. You know, you seem super brainy. You managed to get your own dissertation published online, and you know that's clearly because you had a passion about what you wrote about, and you obviously, and that's the thing, isn't it? When you've got a passion about something, you do stick into it and you do give it your 100% best. But it's just because you failed on something. Do you think it's like fair to say it's not an immediate reflection on your intelligence?
No,
It doesn't mean you're stupid or anything.
no, I don't think it does. And I think we, like I said, we're our own worst critics, but we are
Yeah.
all human. And something drastically, like something might have not gone drastically wrong. You know, it might have just been that it wasn't right at the time. And I'm a big believer on fate. And I
Me
think,
too.
you know, sometimes at the time you think it's awful and it's the end of the world, but in reflection, you know, it might not be as bad as you think. And, you know, things just happen at their own pace, and you'll be ready to pass that test whenever you are ready. Obviously, put the work in, you know, make sure that you are, you know, trying your hardest. And I can promise you the second time when it came to civil litigation, I worked my absolute arse off. I studied all the time. I did practice tests. I worked really hard, a lot harder than I did the first time. But I still, you know, it didn't mean that I didn't work hard enough the first time because I thought I did. Just things happen when they're supposed to happen, I think.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes like life gives you a bit of a, not a kick up the backside, but a kick up the backside when the time's right. Like sometimes, like you said, it's sometimes nice to not just have that smooth sailing process or experience, because then sometimes if you do have that smooth sailing process all the way up until like the bar course, then it can go extremely wrong if you have that attitude. So I would rather make the mistakes, you know, earlier on, like university and even bar school, do you know what I mean? Rather than making them on the job. But then even on the job, I'm sure you still make mistakes anyway. It's just part of life, isn't it?
Yeah, even if you get all your mistakes in at bar school, I can promise you, you will make mistakes in this job. And
Yeah.
if you've not made any mistakes in school or university, don't be thinking, oh, am I going to make a mistake now? Or when's the mistake to come? Because sometimes it doesn't come. And that's the idea of fate, is it just happens when it happens. And you might not have any mistakes to make. And, you know, it's how it is. And I just think
that is totally not me. I'm the opposite. I'm mistake prone. I'm like the person who's, you know, just got like bad luck walking all over the face. Like I was just telling Gabrielle before we joined on here that I've just literally nearly got sacked today. Like, and that's not even a joke either. Like I'm just so unlucky. Sometimes I walk into bad situations. I really do.
it happens to everyone, don't worry, honestly.
It does. Honestly, it's just sod's law for me. Honestly, I seem to just constantly get into like I'll be the type of person to like drop somebody's phone if I'm holding it and smash it to pieces. Like I'm just so clumsy as well. It's not a good combination at all. But yeah, I'm definitely mistake prone, but I'm fine with it. Um, so in terms of your aspirations to be a barrister, did you know very young that you wanted to be a barrister?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
I always really wanted to be a barrister. And it's not, you know, the typical answer is whenever people get asked this, you don't have to say that you always wanted to be a barrister. You could have decided yesterday that you wanted to be a barrister. You know, don't feel like you have to give the typical answer. I always wanted to be a barrister because of personal reasons. So I was involved in the family justice system when I was younger. I decided that in fact law makes such a difference to people's lives, and I accept sometimes that can be really positive in my case and sometimes it can be really negative, but because it was so positive in my case, I decided that in fact I really wanted to be involved in the law. But I didn't really understand that at the time. Obviously I was very young. I didn't really know that that was a career path I wanted to go down, and as time went on, I decided that was something that I was interested in. You do the usual. And my stepmom got me massively involved in like criminal podcasts, and all the criminal stories where, like most murderers and things like that. And I really found that interesting. And then, as time went on, I really like the professional skills aspect of advocacy. As you can all tell, I'm fairly chatty. I can talk, all day without stopping. And that was really something that I quite enjoy doing. I like the aspect that it's fairly personable and you can make quite a difference in people's lives. And that's always really positive for me. And you take the good with the bad with this job. So don't pretend, and I won't pretend, that everything is smooth sailing and you're always representing people that you want to help, or you always make a difference in people's lives, because that's not the reality of the job. Sadly, sometimes you don't make a positive difference in people's lives. Sometimes you're representing people that you don't necessarily want to represent. But the interesting part is every day is different. You're learning skills every day. And it's never just, boring in reality. There's always something new to do. There's always new skills to learn, and you can always better yourself. And like I explained earlier, I'm fairly aspirational. I like to be motivated. I want to do the best that I can do and be the best that I can be. And as a barrister, you are self-employed. And I like the aspect that I had complete control over my career, where I wanted to go in the future. And I wouldn't have someone kind of telling me what I could do and how I could do it. I like that now, if I decide that I want to do an area of law, I can do that. I can speak to my clerks. I can, with their help, of course, make it work. And I like that control, because I am a bit of a control freak.
Yeah,
but
I love that. I think we're all. I think we've all got a bit of control freak in us, and in terms of the advocacy, where you said that you enjoy chatting and you enjoy speaking. Do you ever find that, like, are you dramatic? Because I'm really dramatic and I over exaggerate everything. Like, do you think barristers are quite theatrical as well, or do you think not particularly? Because I'm the biggest drama queen you'll ever come across ever. Like, just even a couple of seconds ago, then all my friends will tell you one thing will happen, and to me it'll have gone down like this route, and I got attacked by a tiger, and then I got attacked by a dog. Like, it'd be so many different things in it that just didn't happen. But that's me. I'm terrible for that.
I think it depends on the barrister.
Yeah.
It depends on the advocacy style. I think every barrister has their own advocacy style.
Yeah.
And find what works best for you. So what works really well for you might not work well for another individual. And that's just the reality of the job. And I do find that you pick up phrases and you pick up things from other barristers. So when I sit in court, I might hear someone say that, or at King's Counsel say a phrase, and I'll be like, wow, that's actually a really good phrase. And I write it down, and I say, oh, I'll say that, when the time comes, or I might use that in future. But you pick up things, you pick up a lot from your pupil supervisor, from people that you see in court, and you form like a mix of everything to turn it into your own advocacy style. So if you're dramatic, that might work for you. Everyone has their own kind of quirks about their advocacy.
Kind of like your own little language, isn't it, really? And I know I see some barristers, they're really likable personalities, because they are so dramatic and they make people giggle. They'll be like the most dramatic people ever, especially in family court as well. And I think it just totally depends, doesn't it? Like, some people might. So, for example, there's this one barrister I know. I won't name drop or anything, but this is one barrister I know. She's fantastic, absolutely brilliant, but she's so dramatic and everybody loves it. But she's the only one who can pull it off. So I think, like you just said there, it totally depends, doesn't it, on you and how you deliver it. Some people might not be able to pull it off. I could definitely pull off a story about like a tiger eating something, and just a full story. Like I've just said, then I nearly got sacked. I didn't at all. That was such a drama response, but that's just me. But some people can pull it off, and some people can't. That's
Yeah,
so interesting to hear though, how you kind of form your own little like language as such.
yeah, definitely. And I just think it comes with time. And the
Yeah.
more, what I say now, I wouldn't dream of saying on day one. But
Yeah.
you become more comfortable, you become a bit more confident, and you start to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. So I'm fairly personable. I have, broad Yorkshire accent. I quite like the idea that I use them skills to kind of, make my submissions. Do my closing speeches. I don't, try pretend to be someone else. So
Yeah.
something that works for me might not work for you, Ella. It might not work for
Yeah.
anyone. But something that works for other people might not work for me. It just takes time.
Definitely.
You utilize your own characteristics and skills, and what you actually enjoy doing, and then you formulate that into something that becomes a piece of advocacy.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of so becoming a little bit more familiar with members of the bar and judges and things, do you tend to like appear before the same judges quite often? So do you tend to get a little bit of a vibe of what they are like as well as judges, and do you think that helps with your advocacy as well? Maybe you know how to approach a case in a certain way because you know what judge you're going before, or do you think across the board it's all quite like like just all quite similar?
Yeah, I think I'll go with option one, where every judge is different. One judge might like something and one judge might not. And that takes time. And, I have not mastered that skill yet. I'm a year in. I don't know what every judge likes, but I know certain few. And
Yeah.
I, for example, not to be late in front of one judge and be there 10 minutes early because they get on the bench early. I know that. It takes time, and don't worry about it because we're all trying to find our feet in it.
Yeah, it's kind of
I
like it's so sorry, it's so collegiate, isn't it, the bar, that you kind of do find your own, you find out a bit about each other, don't you? And you kind of find out what that person, if you're going up against that person, say you're defending and they're prosecuting, you know what they're like. And I guess it's kind of just like you said, experience, isn't it, and getting to know each other.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I do find that do you know the benefit is, especially on the northeastern circuit, and that's the only circuit that I can talk about because that's where we're based. But it's so friendly. So you could say to anyone in the robing room, "I'm in front of Judge whoever," and
Okay.
I like, this is what my advice is. Often everyone's so supportive, and it just takes a bit of time to get used to what judge likes what and how to deal with them. And like I say, the northeastern circuit is a big circuit. I'm not in front of every judge or the same judge every day. I'm in front of some judges more than others, but it is like a lottery pick. You
Yeah.
don't You can choose who you're in front of, and the idea really is as time goes on, you will get to know them more, they will get to know you more, and try to attend. Well, I try to attend in person most of the time, because there's obviously now the benefit of CVP, which is a cloud video platform, which is basically a live link. But I try to attend in person because you get to know not only the judge but the court staff, other barristers in the courtroom, and them in the robing room as well. So I try do that and attend any kind of legal event. And really, networking doesn't stop once you become a barrister. It's not like, wow, I've achieved it, that's it, I don't need to do anything else. Networking continues by the sounds of it for the rest of your life. And that's a really strong skill to have. So it's just trying to get used to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to cover networking in the later part of the episode, because I think that that's such a good point to raise. I think so many people have messaged me as well, and this is why I said to them, definitely check out this podcast with Gabrielle, because so many people have messaged saying, I don't know how to network. Or what am I supposed to do? I've tried going to events, I've done this, I've done that. How? And also, all right, okay, it's all good and well networking, you know where to look, to go to an Inn of Court event or a Chambers event. But then how do you maintain that connection? And I completely understand like that fear for people, and you know, you don't want to come across impertinent neither. You don't want to come across like you're just messaging because you want something off them or because you need something off of them. You want to try and keep it as natural as possible. You don't want to make it forced neither. You don't want to have to, you know, just message like a barrister and randomly just be like, oh hi, how's your weekend going? You've met them once because I'm like, excuse me, I beg your finest pardon, like block. So it's just trying to find that fine line, isn't it, really? But yeah, we're going to cover all about networking. I can't wait to hear what you say about that as well, because I think that will answer a lot of questions for a lot of people. Not to put the pressure on you or anything. So in terms of, so your passion for becoming a barrister started young. Thanks for sharing that with us as well. And it was to do with a personal set of circumstances that initiated your passion in law. Did your passion then just intensify when you were doing both your law degree, well, your degree, and then obviously onto the bar as well? Did, especially in the bar part of your higher education, did doing the advocacy, did it really bring out like another burning passion for you, or do you think it just really remained the same throughout?
I think it did. I think you spend, you know, 3 years of, well, even more than 3 years if you do it in college, but 3 years during university doing law, and learning a lot about the legislation and different areas of law.
Yeah.
But unless you're doing mooting, you don't really see the practical element of it. And I think that's the part of being a barrister, and that's really what you enjoy the most. So I think the bar course is the best thing that you can do. You know, I learned so much on the bar course, and Northumbria were great. I like the practical element. I like practicing my advocacy. I like getting feedback. And you don't really get feedback in this job. I think that's one of the hardest parts of the job, is no one really tells you that you're doing a great job. And you know, the only way you find out you're doing a terrible job is if there's a complaint or you get reported to the Bar Council or BSB. I promise you that rarely happens, so don't panic.
That's good.
But I don't think, it's very rare that you kind of get criticised, but it's also very rare that you get a lot of compliments or any feedback. So it's fairly difficult for people like us, because we all, in general, really want to do great, and not knowing, I think, is quite hard. But I think the bar
That is tough. That's so tough as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you get so used to it at university and college, don't you? Sorry to interrupt you there, but it's just dawned on me like how tough that must be, because you get so used to having that one-on-one feedback, then go and actually be out on this platform all by yourself. And you know, I mean, I guess your lay clients will give you your feedback as well, but you can't really take much from them sometimes as well if they're in a stinking mood. Like, you don't really want to take anything from them. But in terms of like actual legal feedback, like you smash that legal point or you smash this legal point, you're only going to get that off a barrister or a judge, aren't you, really?
Yeah, and you know what? You know, second six judges are amazing, and they are really, you know, considerate about the fact that you've just started on your feet. They understand how nerve-wracking it is. Most judges give quite a lot of feedback in that time, and other barristers do as well, which is really, really nice and really supportive. But I think after that period of time, you know, the feedback does start to shy away and you don't really get much. So it's kind of reflecting on yourself, and that's where that self-reflection comes back in. And you can say, well, you know, I didn't like this, but this is what I'll do next time. And it's little things that you don't realise you're doing when you're making the submissions. Do you know, like, I suggest, it, you know, or I think, in submission advocacy, you know, a judge doesn't care what you think. It's not about your opinion. You're making submissions, so it might be like, I submit is how you would say it, and it's really hard to remember things like that. But reflecting on it, once you realise that you've said it, you can take a step back and say, well, actually, you know, this is how I'm going to stop doing that in the future. So you might have, I don't know, I submit on a big Word document, or on a post-it note on your computer, or you know, your piece of paper, to make sure that you don't do that again. So that's the idea, really, to listen to what you're saying, you don't take your time to reflect on that, and hopefully you can make progress. But the positive about having a career at the bar is you are constantly training. So it's not that you qualify and that's it. You don't have to do any training whatsoever after that. You are just a barrister. There's loads of things that the Bar Council and BSB offer, and you have to do training, a set amount of training every year, which might include ethics or advocacy. And you have like the new practitioners training course that you need to go on and do advocacy, and get feedback from trainers. So that's always really helpful, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because sometimes people don't realise, we're all so prone to looking at ITV dramas and things like that, that people don't realise that when you go into court, sometimes, as much as it is a very formal setting, and there are very formal surroundings, and of course the barristers are wigs and gowns and the judges are robed up and stuff, sometimes it does become a bit of an informal conversation with the formal elements still in it, just to try and get to the crux of the point of what's going on, say before the trial's going to start. If it's a is it a PTPH where they're getting everything ready for trial, like sometimes they can become really just informal conversations. The judge is saying, well, what day have you got available? And sometimes I bet, and same, when a judge, I seen the other day, is it a plea and mitigation where it's like there's sentencing submissions, and the judge interrupted the defense's submissions, and they kind of had a conversation back and forth. So I think, like where you've just said there, it's just about finding the right technique and the right version of advocacy. It's probably so easy to say something where you think, oh God, I was supposed to use my legal terminology there and I forgot, because it's sort of, especially in family courts, oh my goodness, like that can be really informal, like really chat, just like a conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I would definitely have to have post-it notes everywhere.
Yeah, I
Like,
do.
don't say to the judge swanning around. Don't say to the judge like shaking like a hairless cat. Like that's my one liner at the moment.
Yeah, I feel like you'll just find your feet, and some people are more informal, and some people have certain types of lingo, and some people don't.
Yeah.
And it's trying to use that as at your advantage, but at the right time as well.
I'm just saying not to like lose yourself as well, though. Keep a little bit of you in there as well, as much as obviously, of course, language is obviously imperative that you match the court's formalities and things, but keep yourself.
I do think you have to be yourself, though.
Yeah.
And I don't use fancy terminology, and I have a broad accent, and I'm very much myself when I give submissions. You don't need to pretend to be someone else. You don't need to use posh language or put on a posh accent, because that's where you fail, I think, because you are pretending to be someone that you aren't. And in fact, if you use all the things about you, your strengths, and take on board your weaknesses, and be yourself, you become a better advocate for it. So pretend to be anyone but yourself, and I guess it'll be better off.
Yeah, I think sometimes as well, if you try and be somebody that you're not, it just comes across really arrogant as well. It just doesn't look attractive to anybody, and especially if you've got your fellow colleagues and things like that, like in the room with you, or if they're acting for the other side, and then you start putting on this certain attitude and persona, people just be like, "What are you doing that for?" It's not good. I think sometimes people take. I'm just saying this from experience. I haven't got a Scooby Doo what I'm talking about, but from what I've seen, especially when I've seen a couple of barristers having fights and stuff, like not physical fights, but having an argument and stuff. And the one thing they'll say is, you're taking the role too literally. You're being too awkward. You're not budging on a point. You're not trying to be cooperative. You're not trying to help everybody out. Just drop it. Just be yourself outside of a court building. You would be like that if we were out for dinner or if we're in a pub. You would be like that. So don't be so awkward unless it's genuinely in the benefits of your client. But yeah, I think like there was a prime example today at work. They were having a fight because one of the barristers was like refusing to budge on a point, and they were going crazy with him. So I think like you said, it's about being yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, I do find as well, some people do take it very seriously, and it is a serious job. So you have to do what you think is right. And sometimes you don't feel that it's right to budge on a point. I I appreciate it's easier said than done. But that comes with time where you realise that you are right or you are in the wrong. Or some people more feel like they, I don't know, have to stand their ground, and some people won't as well. It just comes with experience, I think.
Yeah, 100%. So in terms of, I think it's probably fair to say you just knew you always wanted to be like, well, not always wanted to be, but always wanted to be a barrister, but you knew you always wanted to go into law, and then your passion for becoming a barrister and being at the bar just constantly intensified throughout university. Would you say any certain people in your life or people that you came across through networking, or even like, say, for example, events, or like you're in a court events or chambers events or mooting, like was there anything in particular that you can remember or recall that or a person that made you really want to think, yeah, I want to pursue this career?
I think I met a lot of amazing people
Yeah.
throughout my career, throughout university. I met some really inspiring people, people that really cared about others, that were passionate about the career. On a personal level, I had my dad and my stepmom. My dad is very much like me, or I'm very much like him. He's very motivated, very hardworking, and I definitely wanted to be like him. And then my stepmom really was interested in the law, encouraged me to go into that area of law, and they really motivated me. And then my partner, for example, he put up with all the rubbish. So we've been together 8 years now.
Yeah.
I feel so sorry for him because he's put up throughout not only college but university, and the bar course, then the fight to get pupillage and the difficulties with applications and interviews, and then now the stress at the bar. So he's a massive support for me. And poor Josh, I do feel sorry for him. He had to, drive me to all my interviews. I remember one day I had an interview at Newcastle at 9 a.m. Then I had one at Leeds at 12, and then at Sheffield at 4, I think. So he had to do like all the driving. Obviously, I was stressed anyway. And having 3 interviews in one day just tipped me over the edge, because you're trying to remember why you want to be at each chambers.
Of course.
Kind of multitasking, and thankfully Josh supported me, took me, drove me around, fed me, kept me watered, kept me alive for the day. In reality, I've met some amazing professionals. I couldn't possibly name them all. In reality, every day I meet someone new that I aspire to be like, or think that they are really making a difference at the bar, or making a difference to the legal community, but also on a personal level. My dad, my stepmom, Josh, completely have done that without them.
Oh, that's amazing. And I'm constantly sending people photographs of my wedding dress, and I haven't even got a boyfriend. And every response I get is just, can you find yourself a boyfriend first? And I'm thinking, God help anybody who has to put up with me on a normal Monday to Friday basis, let alone like if I get pupillage interviews. Oh my God, I'd be a dragon. Like there's just no two ways about it. So, I mean, that's amazing that you've got like family members as well that are there to, and your partner, and there to support you, but that also you've met some amazing people as well. Like I think that's so nice. But I think you probably did really put yourself out there and make an effort as well, and that's maybe why you've reaped the benefits of meeting so many good people, because I think your passion, like, it's completely reflected in you. I can see what an amazing barrister you are. I follow all of your stuff. Like I remember that time I remember telling you on the phone that time when you got the first jury trial. I was like, what the hell, like, was it? And I was like, I think I know her. Like I was telling everybody, and I was like, I don't even know her. But I think your passion is again so unmatched. And I've been so lucky, a bit of an off-topic point, but I've been so lucky because everybody I've asked to come onto the podcast have been mind-blowing figures, like have just completely blew my mind. You, all of the other people that I've hosted have just got such a like magnificent story to tell, and so approachable and so kind as well, just down to earth. And I think that's probably why you've managed to meet so many good people, because it's a reflection of you. Like you are who you hang around, aren't you? And the energy that you put out, I think it totally gets reciprocated.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's very kind.
You're welcome. Not a problem at all. So, in terms of bar skills, so is there anything, one piece of advice you would give to, so you struggled with the civil litigation, but you went back 10 times harder and tried even harder, worked even harder. In terms of, I guess, then that work, like managing that work level, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because like you said, you thought you put 100% into it, and it wasn't until you went back and reflect. It's all about self-reflection, isn't it? So it's a hard question, really. But is there any advice you would give to somebody on the bar or about to start the bar that could apply to all topics?
I think the bar course is hard. I think don't pretend that it's not one of the hardest courses to complete, you know, in the country. Some people underestimate it, and I think I did at the start. I didn't think it was hard as what it was. But remember the end goal, and remember that at the end of it, you know, you will be so proud of yourself for completing that course, and you will reflect on how well you've done. But my advice, I think, would be just keep going. You know, it gets tough. You have bad days, you have, you know, good days, but you just have to keep pushing through, because this is just part of the, you know, tick list to get to where you want to be. And take as many opportunities as you can during bar course, during university. You know, if you think outside the box and you decide that you like mooting, do mooting. If you don't like mooting, don't think it's the end of the world. Do you know, you don't have to moot, but there are other things that you can be doing. You know, like Ellie with this podcast, amazing reflection, something where you can say you have communicated, spoke in public. Public speaking is such an important skill at the bar. Just try and think outside the box. Do every opportunity that you can, and you know, just give it your all, and once you get to the end of it, you will reflect on it, and just be so proud of where you've come, you know, how far you've come, what you've done. And I can reassure you, you know, if anyone needs anything, if anyone's got any questions, you know, I'm happy to help. I'm sure most professionals are. Just bite the bullet. You know, there's a saying that my dad always used to say to me, which is, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I know that there's a saying in Newcastle, you know, shy Ben's getting no. Because I obviously went to university in Newcastle. That's something that's really stuck with me, is, you know, if you don't ask, you'll never know. So speak to people, contact them on LinkedIn, and you know, we'll go through networking shortly, I'm sure. But comfortable trying to contact people, to connect with people, message them. Like I said, we are just humans, and we really want the best for everyone. Anyone at the bar has got to the bar because they've been given, you know, advice on the way, or support on the way. And you know, we're all well aware that we couldn't do this job without that support. So we try and reflect it back, and you know, assist as many people as possible. And that's why I do things like this, and you know, I do because I am really passionate about giving back. So that's my biggest advice, is if you don't ask, you don't get. Connect with people, message them, you know, ask for work experience, ask for advice on how to write a mini pupillage application, ask for advice on pupillage interviews or pupillage applications, you know, and I guarantee someone will assist.
Yeah, and what about with your lecturers? Would you say that that's also a good opportunity to network as well? I'm guessing some of them are practicing barristers, and also just to get some, or if they're not practicing, they probably have been lawyers at some barristers at some point. So to get a little bit of advice from them, would you say it's a good little avenue to explore?
Yeah, I really enjoy it, and that's why I do. I go to schools, universities, colleges, and you know, any type of society. I'm massively involved in that, and simply because I know how it feels. Like, I was in your position at one point. I was terrified. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know any barristers. Barristers were on a pedestal for me. I felt like I couldn't reach out to them. I felt limited. And you know, that's why I try make everyone realise that in fact it's not as big and scary as you think. Most barristers really do want to help and really do care about people. And that's why I do lectures. I try and make it interesting and exciting. I can't promise that I do every time, but that's the idea of it, and really try and get people involved in it. And I tailor it to the individual. So I can't imagine what I say at schools will be what I say at universities. But trying to get that experience, at your stage is also really important. So if, for example, you are part of a society, or you are involved in some sort of volunteering work outside of university, you may feel that you want to get more people involved. You may want more volunteers. You may have an event coming up. Speak to someone at university. Ask if you can do a lecture, or if you can go around all of the lectures. Let them know about the event. That is public speaking. The idea is that you're not just going to do the basic things.
No.
Mooting, because everyone does it. Everyone's got good grades. Everyone moots. Everyone has done mini pupillages. Everyone has done some sort of volunteering work. Stand out. I've been marking pupillage applications. You're marking tens, hundreds, sometimes you are marking so many applications. What you need to realise is you need to find a way to stand out. And if you are doing the same thing that everyone else is doing, it becomes fairly boring. So be yourself. Find something that you enjoy. For example, my application included that I was converting a van into a camper van. It was obviously around COVID time. I am not hands-on whatsoever, terrible at handy stuff, not a handyman whatsoever. And I hate getting my nails dirty, messy. It makes me agitated.
Yeah.
I did that because, me and my partner wanted to take on a project. We really wanted to do the Scotland 500 route, and we had a miniature dash hound at the time, Winnie. We now have two. But I remember putting that on my application. And you wouldn't think anything of it because it's not skill based. But every interview they ask me about it. They ask me about something about me because, something to remember is we are taking on a person as well. We're taking on a barrister. You need all the skills, but we also want to know that we can get along with you, and that you are going to fit in well at chambers, and that we're the right chambers for you. So my chambers is a dog chambers. We all have dogs, and that was quite something that they talked about in my interview.
Oh, I love that. My friend did actually suggest to me to talk about my love for bunnies. So I've got like an unhinged obsession with bunny rabbits to the point where I always try. So I went to Bali and I bought 2 rabbits the minute I landed there. Within 3 days, they were getting delivered. I'd stalked this guy on Instagram like 4 days before I went to Bali, and I was like, "Get me rabbits sorted now." It was hilarious. It was definitely something probably like awful going on because these rabbits are like £1.50, and you got them delivered on like an Uber Eats bike, basically in like a cardboard. It was the most shocking thing ever. But I got these 2 little bunnies, Nala and Coco, and Nala had like bright blue eyes like me, and she was all white, and she was the cutest little sassy thing ever. And like I just wanted to get her like a tiara, and I had like a bunny in England as well, Milo. I got him like a collar and a lead, and I'd take him on like walks around my house in like area. I got him like these fairy rings on the back of his back, and like I'm obsessed with bunnies. That's how much I love them. But everybody was saying to me like, I don't have a hobby. Like my hobby is like, to be honest, probably drinking wine, going out for dinner. I don't have a hobby, and they were like, just mention your bunnies. Like it's something that's really personal to you. And on that same topic of animals, she'll kill me for saying this, but my other friend as well, I could never possibly confirm or deny her name, but she actually put on a pupillage application that she's got 2 stingrays, and for every pupillage interview offer that she gets, she's going to do a skydive. And every time she's gone, the master, they've been like, "When are you booking your skydive?" And she's like, "No." So maybe just don't say anything unrealistic neither. But she's got 2 stingrays, and they've been asking her all about the stingrays. Like, They're
think that's
obsessed with
the
it.
exciting part, like we're interviewing so many people. There's so many applications to read. Just find a way to stand out and be yourself. Don't pretend, don't say that you are an avid reader of Shakespeare if you're not, because I guarantee someone on the panel will be.
Well, ask you,
Or
yeah.
don't tell them that you love golf and you have no idea what golf is, because someone on the panel will know. And that's one thing to know, be honest. And if you aren't, you will get caught out. The thing about the bar is about ethics.
Don't lie.
But if you lie.
Do not lie. All right, okay, brilliant. Oh, well, nice to know you've got two dash hounds now as well. So you had Winnie to begin with in COVID, and now you've got another one. What's the other one called?
Willow, yeah.
Oh, Willow and Winnie. Oh, that's so cute. Little sisters. Are they naughty?
Yeah, they are. They're absolute buggers, all the time. But wouldn't be without them. They at least keep me on my feet.
I know, but it's actually having like a full-blown child, isn't it? Like Milo was bad enough for me, and he just bloody ate hay, do you know what I mean? He didn't really do much, but like even I was still like up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I think I took it a bit too seriously. I was up at 6, like combing his hair. He was like, oh my God, I think he was terrified of me, to be honest, but never mind. I've learned on that self-reflection. I know never to bother my buddies again because they bit me. So maybe he didn't like me after all, but yeah. So in terms of your dissertation, then I've been dying to ask you this question. So for example, the personal circumstances that you mentioned, they were surrounding the family justice system that you were exposed to at a very young age. Initially then, was that where your heart lied in terms of the legal system? Was it immediately at the family justice system just because you hadn't explored any other areas? Is that where you were initially at?
Yeah, so I originally wanted to do family. Then when I did I obviously like crime. Everyone likes crime. Crime's interesting. It's the automatic thing that you want to do when you want to be a barrister is crime. And then when I did a year as a prison law advocate, I decided, in fact, I do really like crime, and that's definitely something that I'm interested in. And then when I did my common law pupillage, my supervisor was amazing, and he only did crime. And he it really inspired me, and I decided that was definitely the area of law that I wanted to do. I love crime now. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. But yeah, originally I did want to do family.
And is that where your idea to do your family dissertation came from as well then?
Yeah. Yes, I was always really interested in family. I think it's fairly hard to do any work experience in family, because it's mainly quite closed. The proceedings are closed. It's easier to do it in crime. So I never really got that experience. But then I decided that was something that I wanted to do. I did my dissertation, and then I, changed my mind slightly. I do a bit of family, but not a lot. I mainly do crime.
And did your family, like the idea, inspiration to your dissertation as well, did that come from the experience the exposure that you had through the support through court experience that you had, where did you go into family court during that experience?
I didn't. It was mainly about filling forms out, having conferences with people, talking them through how to fill out the applications and what would happen. And that was really useful. I learned a lot through support through court, and learned a lot of skills. I think it's really difficult though, multitasking so many areas, not just volunteering, but mooting and whatever else you can do. But that experience was, invaluable. And I would really recommend people have a look down the volunteering route, whether it's, citizens advice. I can't speak now. Support through court, any type of volunteering. It just kind of gets you out there, gets you speaking to people, dealing with people that have, problems, and understanding how to speak to them when they're, at the worst stage of their life, or they feel like it's all getting too much. Then you're kind of building on that skill.
Yeah, definitely. And just a bit of a personal question, and if you don't want to answer, you don't absolutely don't have to. But in terms of the experience that you had as a young child, young person, with the family justice system, do you ever find that the family work that you do, the little bits of it, has ever been a little bit too similar or a bit too personal, or do you actually have the opposite effect and think more of a reason to fight, if that makes sense, more of a reason to put your heart into it?
Yeah, I think you know, sometimes you have cases that you don't want to do, and sometimes you have cases, and this is in all areas of law, that you think, oh, I'm dreading that, or I'm not looking forward to it. But one thing to note is, you know, you have to represent everyone fairly or and equally, and you aren't the judge, you aren't the jury. Your job is simply to represent them to the best of your ability, and not to prejudge people. Because often you may feel, you know, this person is not going to be successful, or this person's going to be convicted, and that's not the case, and they're not. So I do think not to prejudge anyone, but also to kind of do your very best no matter what. Irrelevant of the circumstances, irrelevant of how it makes you feel. You just kind of have to put your feelings to the side. And you know, that's a question that I remember being asked in a pupillage interview is, you know, how you manage like the personal aspect and dealing with a case that goes against your personal values to having to do it because, you know, that's part of the job, and how would you deal with that? And I think it's just about putting your personal values to the side, you know, and trying to do the very best that you can do, irrelevant of how you feel about an individual or about the crime that they've committed. And that's part of the job, and that's the skill that you have to get in. You know, and it's just the harsh reality. Without that skill, you can't do the job.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you say anything in terms of family and crime are quite similar? Would you say there's any crossovers between the two?
I think they're very similar. I do. I think the skills that you have in both family and crime are very similar, in terms of communicating with people, being personable. Um, I think, you know, that there is a big crossover in terms of the skills, and that's why I could easily go between family and crime, because I understand that they're very similar. And
Yeah.
that's why when I started to realise that I really liked crime, it's because it was very similar in the skills that an advocate would need for family. Um, yes, I do think they are, and it, you know, it just some things are slightly different, and you know, you may enjoy, you know, crime more, you know, because it's, yeah, I think everyone has different views on it and what they want to do. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that's really interesting to hear, actually. Thank you for telling us that, because I think sometimes it is actually quite an interesting question to ask what is similar to crime, because sometimes people just class crime totally isolated in its own little lane. So it's quite nice to hear that there is other, that you can take skills and you transfer skills between two or three different types of law. So thank you for that. So if you don't mind, let's talk about pupillage, the P word. And about tenancy as well. So let's first start with pupillage. So your pupillage experience, your first and your second round interviews, how did you prepare, sorry, for your first round?
um, I think you prepare the same for both first and second round.
Right.
When I first applied, I didn't prepare that much. I didn't practice giving answers. I didn't think much about it. Whereas the second time when I got it, I had prepared a lot. So I had a friend who, you know, I'm still friends with, still in contact with, and she was applying for pupillage as well. And we had a Zoom call pretty much every night. We were probably sick of each other at the end of it. And she would ask me pupillage questions, and I would ask her them. And then we would give each other feedback. And that made us a bit more prepared, I think, because, you know, the typical questions like why do you want to be a barrister or why are chambers, you'd already practiced them. So when they asked you, you was kind of like, oh, I know what my answer's going to be. So I would think of a question, and I would answer it with the rule of three or the STAR technique. So say, for example, what skills do what's the most important skills for a barrister? And then I would think, well, 1, 2, 3. It may be advocacy, personable, and I'm trying to think of the best one.
Think of yourself.
Well, and then I'd probably go down the route of, thinking on your feet or something like that. And then I would set out, why that skill was important, and I'd write this down, thinking about it, why this skill was important, and then how I possessed it. And then what I would do is I'd practice it with my friend, and then the next time when I was asked it, I could just write, personable, advocacy, thinking on your feet, and then I would remember what examples I'd given. So I think it's all about preparing and practicing as much as possible. And then, when you've got them awful questions that you never expect to be asked, then you can somewhat be prepared for them, and take your time. And some of my biggest advice when it comes to interviews is really do take your time. Don't answer before you thought about the question. It's the worst answers are where you ask a question and an individual doesn't actually answer the question, because that doesn't show any type of advocacy skill. So take your time with it. I remember I got asked, a for and against question, and I'd prepared the for question because I had time beforehand to prepare it, but I'd not prepared the against. And everyone tells you, don't they, to prepare for and against whenever you get asked a question. But for some reason, me in that moment, I didn't prepare it. I was kicking myself after, because normally you would think about doing that. And then when they asked me to flip it, I was like, I've not even thought about it. So I asked for 5 minutes. I grabbed a pen out of the pen pot in the middle of the table and jotted down some examples. And I'd used what they had kind of argued with me about as my against points. So I think that was always quite useful. So take your time. If you need time, ask for it. It's the same in court. If I need time to think about a submission, I will ask for time and the judge will allow it. Don't make silly submissions because you've not thought about it. But yes, I think that's really important when it comes to pupillage interviews.
Thank you so much. And talking about your experience with first rounds and second rounds, did you get a first round on your first round of applying? So your first year of applying, when you submitted your written applications, did you get a first round straight away?
Yeah, yes, I got, I think, 3 first rounds, and then I was a reserve the first time I applied. But the first time I really wasn't ready. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I remember one of my mentors was on a panel, and I think there was around 6 barristers maybe when I walked in, and I was so scared, and I sat on my hands, and my body language was slouched, and I was shaking. So I thought, if I sit on my hands, they won't be able to tell that I'm shaking. Whereas I talk with my hands, and you can't see because thankfully we're on Zoom, so it cuts it off slightly. I talk with my hands, so I felt really restricted. My voice was shaking. I couldn't answer any of the questions. I was just so scared. And my mentor afterwards said, it didn't even look like you. It didn't come across like you whatsoever. It was like it was a different person. So I think the first time when I say I wasn't ready, at the time I thought I was, but I really wasn't. I was, I'd let the nerves get to me. Whereas now on the second time I did it, like I said, I was very confident. I walked in, I used my hands when I was talking, so I felt more comfortable. I sat up straight. If I needed time, I asked for time. I had water next to me. Always get a glass of water. Honestly, it's a lifesaver. And even if you don't need a drink, and they ask you a question and you don't know the answer and you need time to think about it, have a sip of water. Don't feel like you have to answer it straight away. You know, there's tactics to this. You don't have to ask for time. Have a sip of water. Have a think. Just pause, and that's all fine as well.
I'd be like, oh look, like look out the window, like that would be my tactic. I'd be like, oh look at that, oh look, there's a dead bird flying there. No, that was something that's something I would do. And no, that's another thing that people don't tell you often to do neither in interviews. They tell you that if you need time, take a breather and don't answer the question. You do get told that across the board, but nobody actually tells you how to ask for time. Do you just say, oh please may I have a couple of minutes to think about that, like you said, where you just was like, I haven't even prepared for that? You grabbed a pen straight away, you started thinking of ideas, or take a sip of water. Nobody tells you that.
Yeah, I think I made a joke about it.
Yeah.
I said they always tell you to prepare for and against. I'm kicking myself now for not preparing the other side. So I said, can I have a moment to have a think about it?
Yeah.
No, that's all you have to say. Just ask for a moment. Say it how it is. Call a bird a bird. You really don't need to overthink it. This is the most simplest part of an interview. Asking for time, saying hello, saying goodbye. They're the best parts of it. So if you need to, ask for it.
When you walked into your interviews as well, did you walk in and be like, hi, good morning, or like, hello? Were you smiley, or did you walk? Because I would have walked in like, oh, like a mouse. That's what I did in my in of court scholarship interview, and I was like, why did I do that? Should have just walked in totally myself and been like, hi, my bubbly self. But I think you are right. The nerves just get the best of you. But looking back on that second time when you're ready for it, how did you walk in?
I was just myself. I was smiley. The question that I always get asked is, do you shake her hands? Do you just sit down? What do you do? I think you read the room. If there is 3 people on a panel, you'll shake their hands maybe if you feel that they should. If there's 6, you're not going to shake everyone's hands. Read the room. I would go in morning, or good afternoon, or hi, whatever. You just be yourself. Don't overthink it, because the second you start overthinking it, you are not going to be yourself. You're not going to be comfortable. And just take your time, because in reality, everyone that's interviewing you wants you to do well. No one's wanting you to fail. No one's wishing any negative on you. Everyone wants you to do well on that panel, and that's why sacrificing their Saturday or their Sunday to be there, to interview you, to give you the opportunity to answer the questions. So just be yourself, and be as bubbly as you want to be.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. And in terms of offers, did you get 5 offers? Is that correct?
Yes, I got really lucky and got 5 offers. Yeah.
That's amazing. And what did it feel like on offer day? Did you wake up, were you shaking like a hairless cat? Like, how did you feel? Were you just, so what was you, and then when you got that, you got them rolling through, what was going through your head?
I was terrified. Yeah. I think that they can't give you an offer before 10 o'clock. I think that's the rule. So I obviously barely slept. Forced Josh to take me for a McDonald's, because I was like, I can't be at home anymore. I'm going to pull my hair out, because I was just sat looking at my phone, like, watching the minutes pass by. So Josh took me for a McDonald's, and I couldn't eat it because I was so nervous. And then as 10 o'clock came, I got phone calls, I got emails. I was so grateful, because I was just so scared that I wouldn't get any. But I do think, not to sound ungrateful, but when you get so many offers, it becomes kind of overwhelming, because I only ever applied at chambers that I really wanted to be at, where I saw myself in the future, that I genuinely, would be happy if I got an offer there. So then having, 5 became fairly overwhelming. In fact, I had the worst day ever. I didn't enjoy it whatsoever, because I didn't know what to do. And in my heart, St Paul's was always going to be the option. I loved St Paul's interview. I love the people there. Sometimes it does just click. But also, the other 4 chambers were amazing chambers. Really nice people. I loved my interviews there. So it became so hard on that day. But again, so grateful for it. And I don't want to seem like I'm complaining, because by no means complaining.
No, absolutely not. And why St. Paul? So you clicked and you enjoyed the interview, you love the people, but why else? What made you originally apply there?
So I marshalled a judge that was from St Paul's.
Oh,
And the judge was amazing, really positive about the chambers. And at St Paul's, quite a lot of people that have left have become judges. Now there's a lot of King's Counsel. They really focus on getting good work fairly quickly, which I, like I said, very aspirational, want to do the very best that I possibly can. And St Paul's could offer that. And that was something that I, was very grateful for. I've had really good work so far. I've been led already. I have done my own trials. I'm so grateful. I'm, rarely in the magistrates court, but even when I am, I'm again very grateful for doing both magistrates court work and Crown Court work. But St Paul's, not only is the work great, I like the idea that it's a smaller set, so I know everyone. If something goes wrong, I can phone anyone at St Paul's and they will answer and they will help. And I'm sure that's the same at other sets. But it was just the right one for me. And then when I did my interview, it kind of all set in. Don't get me wrong, it was probably the scariest interview I've had. I think there's around 6 barristers. Most interviews are around 3 or 4. I think there might have been 6 or 7 on my panel. Terrifying, but so rewarding. And when I came out of there, I was like, I would love to be there. So I was well.
That's amazing as well that you came out straight away and just knew that you just wanted to be there. That must have been such a lovely feeling as well. And now to be a barrister there as well, like what a whole round circle moment, full circle moment. Oh, that's amazing. And in terms of when applying to chambers, what would you suggest that people who are going through the pupillage process next year or the year after, or whenever, what would you suggest that they look for when selecting the chambers that they want to apply for?
I think, first of all, start with the basic research. Research is a skill that you all learn in university, or hopefully you should do. I hated research. Still to this day, if I can avoid legal research, I will. And that's part of my job. But first of all, research the chambers. So you'll have an idea of what chambers you want to go to. I think quality over quantity in terms of applications. So don't apply for 30 chambers, half of them that you don't know the names of, you don't know their values or their ethos. I'd recommend that you only apply for 5 that you genuinely want to be at, because you will be a better candidate for them 5 than you will be for the 30. And that's because you genuinely want to be there, you'll be interested, you'll know how to answer the questions, you'll be keen on doing the research, and you'll keep an eye out on people. For like LinkedIn, you look at chambers, you will genuinely want to be there, so you'll put the work in. And in terms of research, I think, check the basics like websites, LinkedIn, connect with barristers from that chambers, keep an eye out on what they're doing. Any, new case law, is someone involved from their chambers? Think about that. Going to networking events or events like this, it could be as simple as I saw Gabrielle Coates on the Call to the Bar podcast. I found what she said was interesting. You might not actually find what I say is interesting. It doesn't matter. But that's something where you are connecting with an individual from that chambers. Message me after, try form that relationship. It's really important for you to do that and for you to take them steps. So I think that would be my advice in terms of deciding what chambers you want to go at. If you meet people from that chambers, that might, make you decide that in fact, St Paul's Chambers is the one for you, or whatever other chambers you are applying for.
And obviously, of course, I'm just taking with that, everybody can add you on LinkedIn if they want to, and even drop you a message if they've enjoyed a certain part of what you've said this evening. And there is going to be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. So if you do want to put any questions in now, please do feel free to. But yeah, is that okay for everybody to add you on LinkedIn and whatnot?
Yeah, of course, I'm happy.
Amazing. Thank you. So in terms of the fact that you've just talked on there, you've got a lot of Crown Court work. You do work in the magistrates as well, and you have had your own trials. You've been led as well. The jury trial that you did, your first one, where you got your defendant fully acquitted from a half-time submission. Submission of, well, it's no case to answer. Can you just talk to us about that, and yeah, just what that feeling must have been like?
It was amazing. I'm very proud of myself, and
Yeah.
the defendant was very happy with the result, and that was really nice for me. I think it was the right thing to do, and I'm glad that I made the half-time submission. But often you start to question yourself, because obviously when I'm thinking about making these submissions, the prosecution disagree with me. They say I don't have any grounds to do so, and you start to question your own ability and whether you're going down the right route. I think one thing that you need to do is really back yourself. And even if you're making a terrible submission, the judge will just tell you that you're making a bad submission and you will stop. But I think I'll be frank with you. I worked really late nights when I got that. So it was a floating trial. I didn't know who I was in front of. A lot of floating trials crack, which means that someone pleads guilty. Or they go off to a different date in the future. Floating trials don't always go ahead. So I didn't know which judge I would get. I got assigned my judge. I was obviously extremely nervous, and we'd heard evidence, and then we'd stopped for the evening. And I'd informed the court that I'd make a half-time submission and I'd prepare it over the evening. I stayed in a hotel room near the court. I got myself a Subway and I got 12 cookies. I'm not going to lie. I don't even care. I got the full 12, a foot long. I was living my best life in a Premier.
I love that.
Yeah, you've got to. And I stayed up till probably 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And I was just working on this half-time submission all night. And I'd phone members of chambers to make sure that it was right, and people read over it for me, which I obviously extremely appreciate. And I woke up the next day slightly exhausted, and made the submission, and it was all worth it. But that's the way the bar is. Sometimes you have late nights, sometimes you finish at 12 o'clock and you get to enjoy the sun and have a good evening, or go to the cinema. There is no 9 till 5. It's not consistent, and you need to be able to motivate yourself. And if you want to, I don't know, you have to miss out on seeing your friends sometimes. You have to have that self-discipline. I know one of my best friends said, she's a nurse, she works extremely hard, and she says, I don't know how you do it, because she will ask me if I want to do something, and I'll say, oh, sorry, I've got to work. And she was like, I would never be able to do that, because I would want to go and do, that's something with my friend, or I'd want to go enjoy myself. But you have to have self-discipline as well.
I've got the fear of missing out, so I find that difficult sometimes as well. But I mean, that's just unbelievable that you worked that long as well, and that hard on it, and then delivered it. I mean, yeah, you must have been, and also well done for sticking to your point and just being like, no, actually, I'm going to make it, because you obviously felt that was right. You had your ethical duties to your client and to yourself as a barrister, and you pursued it obviously because you thought that was the correct thing to do, and it was. So yeah, I remember seeing that and I was like, oh my gosh, Miss Girl is famous. Like, I was like, this is fantastic. But yeah, I mean, that's amazing. So congratulations again. I know it was like a while ago, but still congratulations again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. And also, as a criminal barrister now, looking back on the common law pupillage that you did, do you see some benefits of doing the common law pupillage, or do you wish you would have just done a straight crime pupillage, like criminal pupillage?
I'm so glad I did a common law pupillage.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend it to anyone. I appreciate they've started to narrow down some more sets, prefer, a crime pupillage or a family law.
Yeah.
I think the skills that you get from a common law pupillage are, so valuable, because, you will go into something and think, oh, I definitely want to do family, like I did. I want to do family. I think that's my main interest. And everyone tells you that the area of law finds you. So there's no guarantee that you will definitely want to do family in the future. The right area of law just finds you, and that's what happened in my case. And I think to do a common law pupillage, you get to see all areas of law. You get to meet each barrister that does different areas of law. Whereas if I had have just done crime, I would have never met really, or actually spent time with people in the civil sector of our chambers, or people that did family. So I got the luxury of kind of spending time with individuals in different areas of law, and also kind of gaining that, friendship and people being used to me as well. Whereas if you just in one area, you never have the luxury of meeting everyone. Whereas because we do common law pupillages, not only do you get to meet every member of chambers, but you also get to kind of work on the skills from each area of law. So civil, every civil barrister that I know is amazing at drafting written arguments. That's like a key skill for a civil barrister. And without doing my common law pupillage, I would have never picked up on some of the skills that I did. I learned so much from each practitioner. And I think doing a common law pupillage is the best thing I could have possibly done. And the practical benefit is now if I decide that I want to do a bit more civil, or which I highly think is unlikely, or I decide that I want to do family or any other area of law, I have that flexibility. Whereas if you are just set on a criminal pupillage, that flexibility is kind of taken away from you. So I'd highly recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you've opened up flexibility really if you do want to dip into any other areas of law. Do you think you will dip into any other areas of law, maybe in the future?
I think so. I would. I really want to do some of the police work, police discipline, that type of work I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's military work that people are doing. I would love to have a look into that. I'm not against trying new areas of law, giving it a go, and seeing if it's for me. And that's something again that you guys should do, is never limit yourself. Give things. Oh, if it's not for you, it's not for you. And that's the benefit of having like really supportive clerks. If you tell them that you're interested in something, they are likely going to find ways to get you involved in it, and see how they can assist you, get like organise opportunities and events to make sure that you can meet the relevant people. So yeah, I think that's police federation work is something that I'd like to get into, and maybe even the military work eventually, but it's so rare to get into that.
Yeah. I seen Martha Costello on Silk, on, I don't know if you've seen the series, that she did military work, and I was like, what the hell? She's hilarious, by the way. If I met her, she's the greatest of all time, isn't she? She's not even a barrister. But yeah, so in terms of life as a junior, then what can that look like? So you're preparing for cases what, night before, week before?
I think it depends. I think when you first start out, it is mainly the before, because you are doing things like sessions. So for people that don't know what sessions are, you are instructed by the CPS, and you're given like a list. So you may get given 5 trials that you have to prepare for. You go into the magistrate's court, and you may deal with all 5. You may deal with 3. You may have to offer no evidence on some of them because the witnesses haven't turned up. You have to deal with, a lot in that day. And often you get instructed or you get given the papers a maximum of 48 hours before, so a maximum of 2 days before. So when you are so junior, you are working most evenings before. You can't prepare things massively in advance. But as time goes on, when you go into the Crown Court, that does start to change. You don't normally have to prepare things the night before unless you decide that that's something that you want to do. Everyone works differently. So some people will get up at 5 a.m. and work from 5 a.m. till 10 and then be ready for the day. Some people like to work till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, get up at 9, get to court for 10, organised, ready. Everyone will find their own kind of way to work. Some people prefer to work weekends and not work through the week. Some people prefer to work evenings. And I'm not going to pretend that it gets, easy. Sometimes you'll get a return really late on, and you'll have to sit and prepare it, during the evening. I had a POCO, which is Proceeds of Crime Act, final hearing returned to me the other day. It was returned to me at 5:30, I think, and the trial was the next day. So I worked all that evening. It's just how it is. That's what the job's like. But sometimes when you finish in court at 12 o'clock and most other people are working till 5, it becomes worth it.
Yeah, I bet. And so in terms of those skills of having to work late at night and just having to basically think on your feet, take the ball as it's rolling, talking a little bit now about Let's Chat Law. So you are the co-founder of that. There is a function on Let's Chat Law, which is, I think it's understanding legal tech and understanding how to potentially research or utilize the internet and the legal stuff out there correctly. So would you say it would be quite useful for an aspiring lawyer to utilize that tab and go onto the website and have a look at what it's all about? Because as a junior getting cases the night before, you're going to have to do your research. Maybe you'll have to do research. So do you think that's quite a good function on Let's Chat Law to use on the website?
I'd like to think so. I'm really proud of Let's Chat Law, and my co-founder Hannah May is amazing. The idea of Let's Chat Law is really to help people and answer, the silly questions that you are too scared to ask anyone, and to people a safe space to communicate, to ask them questions, to get advice, to learn about the law, to learn about the bar and the solicitor route. And I think the website, we're expanding it constantly. It's really helpful. It's got resources. We have a podcast. So if you like listening to me talk a load of rubbish, I'm on the podcast with Hannah. We do events, both in person, networking events, and we do online events. We really do try to make it as accessible and as helpful as possible to everyone, really. And even if it's a silly question, message the Instagram account. People man that. There's a big team. Well, I say a big. There's a team of us, and all of the team are amazing. They're all really committed to helping people, and they man the DMs. Respond to comments. It works really well. In fact, I am very proud of it.
And so you should be as well. And where did that inspiration come from? Was it just you wanted to help young people in the same position as you and give them something to access where they do feel safe and non-judged? I refer to this every time I do a podcast, but it's so true. I didn't know the difference between a solicitor and a barrister. I'm not joking. When I was in second year university, I was like, I don't understand, and I had to pace through and do stupid amounts of research. Didn't even have a clue what a mini pupillage was, and I was like, oh my god, I'm going to be so behind. And I think the platform Let's Chat Law, what you've created, is absolutely unbelievable, because so many people, you get so much out of that. Even me, probably, now years down the line, I'll still be asking silly questions because no question's ever silly.
Exactly, and that's the important part. And Hannah did, great. It was during COVID. Everyone was really isolated. No one had anyone to go to. And the idea was it started off as a legal community for everyone to talk to each other, to ask questions, to get involved. It started off by Instagram messages, and that's eventually we've turned into events in person, a podcast. It's all expanded quite a bit. And it's nice to see that progress, but the idea really is sometimes this can be really daunting. You don't know who you can ask questions to, you don't know the answers, for some reason it's not accessible whatsoever, and the idea of Let's Chat Law is to try and make it more accessible. We produce blogs on there. We try and make as much resources as possible. The website's fairly new, so it's
amazing
to develop it. Yes, the idea really is just to answer those questions, make you feel like you've got a big sister or a big brother that's there to help you and to guide you through this difficult time, because we all forget how hard it is to go through university and not have anyone to answer the questions that you are thinking about.
That's amazing as well, and I'm sure so many barristers, well, I know all barristers are there to help you. I know that they absolutely love helping young baby barristers come up, or young aspiring barristers. I know that they do. I know that from my own experience. But like you said, you hit the nail straight on the head there. You don't know who to ask. You don't know how to ask them. You don't know how to approach them. And that ties into the networking aspect of the podcast that we'll come on to now, and that'll be the last part. But it's so true, isn't it? It's about trying to find how to approach the people, how to ask the question, and how to find them in general. So I think that just having something there where you can kind of stay anonymous if you want, but you can dip your toe in and get into the community a little bit if you want, and build your confidence up that way. That's such an amazing thing. I wish I would have known about Let's Chat Law when I was at uni, because I went to University of Essex and nobody wanted to be a barrister. So I was totally on my lonesome. Everybody wanted to be a solicitor, which is fantastic, but it just wasn't for me. Because I love chatting. So I was like, I want to do the advocacy part, and it's so lonely for me as well, because like I say, I didn't have a clue. I really didn't have a clue. And what I will say is, I do think there's sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, for some reason, universities and people try to put you off a career at the bar.
So bad. Yeah, and they just don't even encourage it neither. It's like they don't even speak about the bar. Like, I didn't even know the bar existed.
Yeah, they're so critical, and they pretend that financially it's not beneficial, and they pretend that it's really long hours and you don't benefit whatsoever, and it's not worth it, and you're better off just doing a 9 to 5 solicitor job. I can reassure you that's not the case. A career at the bar is amazing, not only financially, but it's rewarding, it's fulfilling. It's not as bad as people think, and I'm frustrated at people at the universities, at certain individuals not promoting a career at the bar. I remember doing an exercise where people had to stand on the chairs, and they made lots of people sit down, and I think there was around 3 or 4 stood up, and they said, these are the people that will be a barrister. It's a very small amount that become a barrister after pupillage, and pupillage is really competitive, but you are in control of your own fate. I don't think it's as bad as you would think, and as bad as other institutions make out, that a career at the bar is impossible, not right for you. I remember someone like you won't be a barrister, or with that accent you are never going to be a barrister. Barristers don't talk like you. That's what I got told, and here we are. So we like to prove them wrong, and that's something that you should be doing. A career at the bar is a viable career, more than a viable career. It's an amazing career, fulfilling. Financially it's beneficial. I know that there's a lot of suggestion that financially you won't make any money being a barrister. That is incorrect. I don't know anyone that is in that position. And we are becoming so much more aware as a career to the struggles of women when they come back from maternity and men from paternity. We are becoming a lot more supportive in terms of mental health and well-being. And don't get me wrong, this career is hard, and well-being isn't necessarily number one on anyone's priority list. But as a career, we're becoming more mindful to that. So that's something to think about.
That's so interesting as well about what you say about pupillage and about how the profession is hard, the career is hard. And I think Taz and I, the barrister that I hosted last week or the week before, Taz was saying, I'm so grateful that I managed to become a barrister because he had a real tough, grueling process. And I interjected and I said, I don't mean to be like rude or discourteous at all by saying what I'm going to say, but I think there has to be an element of, well, actually, I've earned this. I'm proud of where I've gotten and I deserve it. And I think that what you've just said there about fate, like you hit the nail on the head, you put what you put into something, what you get out of it. And I am a massive believer in that, whether it's being a doctor, whether it's being a surgeon, whether it's being a barrister, whether it's being some of the hardest professions in the whole world. I still think that if you put your whole into it and you've got a real passion that's just undeniable, then fate has to give you it back if it's for you. Like I do believe that. And I just think I think it's so off-putting the way universities go on sometimes about it. Oh, well, I got told you won't be a barrister because you've not gone to a Russell Group university. I got told that by the head of my law clinic. So it's like if those type of people are promoting that attitude as well, it's quite worrying really, because there'll be nobody coming to the bar. And that's one of the reasons why I set up the podcast as well, was to try and encourage people.
Yeah, I didn't go to a Russell Group. There's many people at the bar that didn't go to a Russell Group, that's from a low socioeconomic background, different ethnicities, different genders, different accents. People don't promote it as much.
No. And I met a judge who got a third, actually, not a you know what I mean, like a third degree, yeah. And he's the resident judge.
Yeah.
And exactly. He's a King's Counsel.
And that's the point, is you put these barristers on a pedestal without actually meeting them, without actually knowing about their background, their story, how they did at school, how they've done throughout life, any challenges that they faced, what they actually sound like. You don't know any of this, and you wouldn't believe the amount of barristers that are very much normal people, just normal people, or even the barristers that have had more opportunities, so down to earth, so willing to help, but it's just this idea that they are gods, when in reality the more you meet, the more you realise that they are just normal people. And if you go to a Russell Group university, or if you don't go to one, doesn't matter, because it's about you as an individual, not the opportunities that you've had, not about where you went to university, not about what grades you got, or how smart you are, or what type of person you are. It's simply about you as an individual, and what you make of it. So what you make of those opportunities, what you make of your personality or characteristics, or how you the outlook in life. It's not that bad. It's not that hard. It doesn't have to be as complicated as people make out. And you've got every opportunity to do this job. I'm 100% sure that anyone listening to the podcast, anyone that's online now, you have got what it takes to be a barrister. You just need to be 100% sure in yourself. Try everything that you possibly can do. Think outside the box, be you, and it'll all be fine.
Yeah, and I think like what you said there about just you are just all humans, barristers, judges, you are all humans, and yeah, of course you are pivotal figures in society. Everybody knows about barrister, everyone knows about a judge, but you are just still normal people. And I could never possibly name, but I was judge marshalling. I'm not going to say whether it was weeks ago, months ago, or years ago, but I was judge marshalling, and I walked into the chambers and the judge was playing Eminem. And I was like, whoa, like this person's cool. But like it's just like he was totally normal, like completely normal. And we were laughing about it, and I was just like, why have I just been shocked at him playing Eminem? Like, if he wants to play Eminem, that's fantastic, you know. But you get shocked over it, and you think, why have I just got shocked over that? Or like, you know, if they say something like, oh, I've gone out with my partner at the weekend for a walk, and you're like, really, you as a judge? You're like, come on, like they are human.
Normal things. You do a food shop,
Yeah, yeah.
your bedroom, your living room, and you walk the dog, and you do everything that normal people do. Yes, that is because everyone else is normal. It can be a career. You know, and that's some things that you forget about. I'm sure I saw a TikTok the other day, and yes, I scroll through TikTok. I'm the worst at it. And it was about kind of people listening to rap music about, you know, guns and violence, drugs, on the way to do their food shop. And I was like, that's on the way to court. Like, I've never touched a gun in my life, never touched drugs, none of that. But I listened to that music, and that's just and you know, I do that on the way to court to represent people, you know, doing the most basic, you know, anti-crime job ever. Like, I'm obviously not a criminal, but I sit and rap to that music on the way to court. You know, we're all different people. You can be yourself.
If anyone's seen my playlist, they'd be absolutely horrified. Like, you know, I worked as a paralegal. I'm going to tell you all something really secret who can't, well, don't repeat. It's going to be on YouTube, so it's going to be known to the world, but who cares? I was a criminal appeals paralegal for just under 3 years. And one of the clients that we had was involved in some gang affiliation. Somebody ended up dying, and basically the client was found guilty and convicted under the legal doctrine joint enterprise for murder. And you know, this person enjoyed a certain type of music, and the certain type of music got played in the trial. And this person said, oh, you know, and I was like, God, like, what does all that mean? It was in my playlist the whole time. One of those songs was in my playlist, and I was like, I'm gonna have to delete that out of my playlist real quick, because I've just been sat in a trial listening to that song, and I like remember listening to it thinking like, God, what a tune. And the judge was like, what is this nonsense? And I was like, you, Miss Girl, don't have a clue, like, this is some real tunes here. But like, yeah, 100%, like, you are just all real people, and that's so refreshing and funny to hear that you actually like scroll on TikTok, you've got 2 dash hounds, like, you're just a normal person.
I am, and that's the thing. You've just got to, you know, even if you don't enjoy rap music and you might enjoy classical or jazz or whatever, you know, everyone is different. Embrace differences, and you know, just be yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I just release you of your awful duties for tonight, thank you so much, by the way, as well. I'm sorry for keeping you so late, but you just, yeah. Let's just talk real quickly about networking. So if you can tie into the support through court work that you did and the prison law advocate work that you did, I'm sure you naturally networked there. And if you did network there, how did you maintain those connections? And then the second part of the question is, scrap those two, how did you just network in general, and what's your top tips for people who haven't got that prison law advocate experience, support through court experience? You know, you founded Northumberland Bar Society, so I'm sure you got loads of connections through that as well. You probably will have, well, you were the face of the Bar Society, organising events, all that type of thing. So you will have just naturally networked there. But what's your top tips for people who do need to network? Because it's a really, really asked question.
Okay, well, starting with the first part of the question, I think it's really important to keep those connections. So once you do meet people, you know, I don't know, when I was a paralegal, I met solicitors, you know, I knew the director of the firm. It's important about keeping those connections afterwards, so keeping in contact with people, checking in on people, you know, and it's as silly as a happy birthday message where people actually appreciate it, and feel like you still care, you're still around, and it's showing people that you do still care, you still want to keep that connection or friendship or work relationship. So I think it's just kind of keeping in contact with them, liking things on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is such a great tool, and I know how cringy it can be sometimes. Trust me, it makes me cringe sometimes as well. But it's really important not only to post about your achievements, but sometimes post about things that haven't gone as well and reflect on that, but also keeping in contact with people, liking people's posts, commenting, messaging individuals, it is a really useful tool. But I'd recommend keeping it up to date. So often people leave it, don't put any information on there. Gabrielle Coates, no picture, no information about work experience, nothing. I think it's really useful to make sure that you keep it updated. And I use LinkedIn, or I did when I was doing pupillage interviews and applications, as a bit of a tool. Because it's so hard when you get given a set application or a CV and a cover letter, and you want to tell them everything about what you've done, but simply there's not enough space. You have to pick the most relevant ones, or the relevant experience, or the most recent ones, and it can become really frustrating. I always find it really useful if people put a link to their LinkedIn on there, and if your LinkedIn's really useful, there's lots of information on there. When I'm reviewing applications, I'll have a look at people's LinkedIn, and I'll be like, oh wow, well, Ellie's doing a podcast, how interesting, how long's this podcast been going, who she had on it. That's kind of an example of really utilizing what's available to you, because networking nowadays isn't just about meeting someone at court or at an event. It's also about online networking. So utilising LinkedIn, keeping in contact with people. And when you think about like in-person networking, I'll sound like a broken record because everyone says this, but go to court. If you haven't got, get mini pupillages. I never got a mini pupillage through a written application. I wasn't very good at them. I only got them through networking. So go to as many events as possible, come to things like this online, listen to podcasts, connect with people that you want to ask questions to, connect with Ellie. Ellie's a perfect example. She's doing all this stuff. Get involved, see how you can help, see what you can be doing. And, go to court, really take your time. If you are in the public gallery all the time, the judge will ask why you're there. Often I've seen people where they sat in the public gallery, the judge has said, who is that? It's a student. Then the judge has spoken to that student, offered them marshalling. Barristers do the same. I do it, often, where I will see students, or I'll hear the court usher say that there's students in the gallery, the public gallery, and I will go and speak to them, ask them what stage they're at, ask them if they've got any questions. Often we will do that if we notice someone in the public gallery. So I'd recommend that you do that as well. And then, just the normal events that you can attend as well.
Oh, you are just such a queen, honestly. Like, that's just amazing. I wish I would have come across somebody like you, because I got the opposite ends of the tail to begin with, to be honest. And then if you got a mini pupil, what would you want them to do? Or what would you want them to do to, leave lasting impression with you? Like not something specific, but what would you be expecting from them that would then make you think, oh, I remember that mini pupil?
I would like them to be proactive. And it's easier said than done, because when you're a mini pupil, you don't really know what you're doing. You probably don't have an idea what's actually going on in court. But I really like the idea of asking questions. So I marshalled a judge once, and he was absolutely amazing. I still, I appear in front of him now. He is one of the biggest inspirations for me, doing all of this outreach. I think, he does the same. I think he's great. And I marshalled him for a week. And it was probably one of the best weeks of my entire life. I'll always remember it. I am so, so grateful for the opportunity. And he every time I came into his chambers, he would be like, "What questions have you got for me?" So after every hearing, he'd be like, "What question have you got for me?" And every morning, "Have you thought of any questions?" And I then realised what he was doing. So every night, I would think about questions that I would want to ask him, and I learned so much from that experience. I try to do the same when I have many pupils. So I'll be like, "Well, what do you want to ask? Ask something." Prepare questions. I would rather you ask me hundreds and thousands of questions than sit there and not ask anything and not learn anything from the experience. So if you are a mini pupil, don't be embarrassed to ask silly questions. Don't feel like you can't engage with the barrister, because if they are taking you on a mini pupillage, they are clearly keen to assist you, or they wouldn't have done it. It's in their spare time. It takes a lot of effort sometimes to have a mini pupil with you. Often we'll buy them dinner, we'll make sure that they've kind of experienced it all, we'll plan it all for them. So just try your hardest to get as much value as you possibly can, and you'll be remembered for that.
Yeah, oh wow, thank you so much. And just last question, you are the head of outreach as well for St Paul's Chambers. And what's been your biggest outreach achievement so far for the Chambers?
That's a really good question. I think.
And also, sorry to interrupt you, but you do a lot of visiting to schools. You even went back to your own school, didn't you? And I think you took a barrister from your chambers, a King's Council barrister. I know that the barrister liked the post for On Call to the Bar podcast, and I think you two have got a really great relationship, haven't you?
Yeah.
And you took that barrister along with you, didn't you? And yeah, you look like you are smashing the outreach completely. So, but what if you had to pick one? What would you say?
I probably would say that going back to my old school was amazing.
Yeah.
That was really nice achievement for me, and also for Chambers, because it's really difficult when you are all self-employed to commit to Chambers, to get involved with things like outreach, because it is all in people's spare time, and sadly with this job you don't have a lot of spare time, so to sacrifice it can become really difficult, whereas everyone at Chambers has been so supportive with outreach, keen to assist for open days and pupillage events, and going to schools. But I do think the probably best achievement for outreach at St Paul's since I've started is really committing to those events and attending them, going to different schools. The North Eastern Circuit are now looking at doing an outreach programme themselves. We were all kind of doing individual outreaches, outreach, and we decided that in fact doing a Northeastern Circuit one would really be good as well, and trying to get involved with bigger programs and going to all different schools. So I think the fact that we are kind of getting involved, starting that, hopefully encouraging other people to do the same as well, is really useful. And Glenn Parsons, he heads the diversity at Northeastern Circuit. He's amazing at outreach. He really does try. Our leader of circuit is Jason Pitter. He again is really focused on outreach, and there's some amazing barristers that are doing the same. So I feel like the fact that we're kind of getting involved with it, going back to my old school, was a nice moment for me, and seeing my old teachers and realizing that I actually made a bit of a difference, and got to see, I even did an hour in what you would probably call in isolation, whereas we called it inclusion. And I did an hour in there where I let them ask me questions, even as basic as how much do you earn, what do you do, how do you deal with it, because obviously that's what kids want to know.
Yeah, of course.
And that was really nice, because I'm hopeful that it kind of encourages people to realise that if you are in a certain area or background or from a certain school, it doesn't mean that you are limited to career choice.
No, absolutely not. And yeah, that's amazing that you actually got that full circle moment to go back to your school as well. It must have been such an achievement for you. And they must have been so proud and made of that you've come as far as you have, and you're just developing. And now you're also like, you just, even just being a junior and a tenant, you've already took on outreach, you've got Let's Chat Law, you know, you LinkedIn, you're constantly doing things to help other people out. Like, you are just really amazing. And I can't thank you enough for coming on my podcast. Like, I feel so happy about it. I remember I made like a little list of people that I wanted to get on it, and I was at the very start in January, and I was like, how am I going to message these people? This is so embarrassing. And then I think I managed to get in a conversation with you, and I was like, oh my God, this is like fate. Fate has just brought it to me. So I was so happy. And I just can't thank you enough. And I think, again, I probably extend thanks on behalf of absolutely everybody, and everybody who will listen to it as well. Yeah, I just think you're absolutely phenomenal. I think you're so cool as well. And obviously stunning, just such a cool barrister. I just think you're totally breaking the mold for everybody as well. And yeah, I remember when I first spoke to you, you were like, you know, because I was like, oh, I feel sometimes a bit embarrassed because I like to get sunbed, I like to get my lips done. You were like, I get my eyelashes done as well, like, so what? And I was like, oh my God, like, you're so normal and so easy to approach, and you're so relatable, and I can't thank you enough, seriously. You just, I just know you're just going to be probably a really famous barrister, and I'll be like, I remember her, she came on my podcast.
Thank you, kind.
But yeah, thanks so much for all of your advice as well. And if anybody has a question to ask Gabrielle, either just unmute yourself and ask it now real quick, or just feel free to add Gabrielle on LinkedIn, as Gabrielle's gave permission for that as well, haven't you? And if anybody would like to drop you a message, are you happy for that as well?
Yeah, I'm happy if you want to ask questions now. You know, we've got time. I appreciate that you've stayed on for 2 and.
I know, thank you all so much.
That's impressive, especially when it's been a warm evening. So thank you all for coming. Happy to answer any questions now. Also, I appreciate it can be fairly nerve-wracking, so happy to answer them after as well.
And it's freezing in my house, so I hope it's warm in everyone else's house, because mine's absolutely freezing. Oh, brilliant. Oh, Hannah said thank you. Really interesting session. Learned a lot. It's been so inspirational. I do think that you are just an inspiration as well, Gabrielle. I really do. And Jordan said thank you so much for your time and your advice. Somebody's just typing, so I'll just let them type the chat.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody's having a nice weekend this weekend as well. The weather's been so nice this week. I was like, summer is literally here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Sadly, I've been most of the week, so I've not had the opportunity to actually enjoy the sun.
Yeah, neither.
This weekend will be nice. And we have pupillage interviews on Sunday, which will be 9 till 4. I'll be very grumpy at 4 o'clock, but it'll be extremely worth it, I'm sure. And I'm sure people doing the interviews will be more nervous and stressed than I will be, and when I'm asking the questions.
Oh my goodness, I don't know. I feel like I would just have to hug everyone. I wouldn't be able to keep a game face on. I would be like, oh, just come and give me a hug.
Well, I'm hopeful that I'm going to be the friendly face to everyone. You know, everyone else wants to have one.
Yeah, I think you will for sure. Well, if any messages, you're most welcome. Thank you honestly so much for staying on, everybody, tonight, and I really do appreciate it. I know some people were joining. I know a lot of people did message as well, say they had commitments this evening. But like I say, it'll be recorded thanks to Gabrielle allowing permission for that. And just thank you for staying on as well, because it's just so nice that people are getting exposed. This is why I set the podcast up, and getting people like you on, Gabrielle, makes such a difference. So I can't thank you enough. Again, thank you.
Yeah, I think if everyone shares it on LinkedIn, you know, it gets not only called to the bar more exposure, but everything that Ellie's doing is really important. And you know, this is part of everything that I'm hoping I'm teaching you this evening, which is getting on LinkedIn, networking, getting exposure, showing your commitment to the bar, which is on a Friday night at 8:15. You are sat here listening to us talk, and that shows commitment. So post it on LinkedIn, message me on LinkedIn if you've got any questions, and I'm sure the same for Ellie. And thank you all for staying on.
Yeah, and please add Gabrielle as well, and actually tag her in the post as well, because it's a good way for you to show that you've networked tonight with somebody. And like Gabrielle said throughout this whole episode, she's repeatedly mentioned think out of the box, and stay, like she just said there, staying on a podcast until 8 p.m. It is thinking out the box. You're doing something different. You don't always have to have a paralegal role. You can show your commitment through something else. So thank you all so much, and Gabrielle, thank you so much again as well. I can't thank you enough.
Of course. Thank you, Ellie.
Okay, thank you. Have a lovely weekend as well. See you all later.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.